One morning, I opened our account and saw $15,000 missing. When I confronted her, she screamed, "It's my right. You owe me for these years." I pulled out the statement in front of her parents and yelled, "Then pay back every cent." Plates shattered as she tried to grab it from my hand. Sometimes money tears apart what love once built. If you face this scene, how would you handle it? Comment your thoughts, and if this story resonates with you, please hit like and subscribe. It helps me continue sharing more stories with you. My name is Ryan Carter. I'm 34 years old, and I live in Dallas, Texas. By trade, I'm a logistics manager, a job that requires order, discipline, and the ability to see when something doesn't add up. Funny thing is, I can catch a missing pallet in a warehouse instantly, but somehow I missed the cracks forming in my own marriage until it was too late. I met Melissa when I was 26. She was dazzling, the kind of woman who never walked into a room unnoticed. She laughed loud, spoke even louder, and carried herself like the world owed her something. At first, that confidence felt magnetic, like I was standing too close to the sun. She was working in retail management at the time. I was still climbing the corporate ladder, and we bonded over late-night tacos and big plans about the future. Within 2 years, we were married. On the surface, it seemed like we had balance. I handled the finances, the bills, the long-term planning. She handled the social side, family gatherings, holiday trips, making our modest apartment feel like a home. We weren't rich, but we weren't struggling either. My paycheck covered most of our needs, and Melissa worked part-time after the wedding. Still, little things bothered me. She had a habit of calling money hers or mine instead of ours. When I saved for emergencies, she complained I was hoarding. When I suggested budgeting, she called it controlling. I brushed it off, telling myself it was just different perspectives. Marriage is about compromise, right? 3 years in, we opened a joint account. That was supposed to be the milestone of trust. We agreed it would be for savings only. A down payment on a future house, a cushion for kids someday, a safety net neither of us could dip into without a real reason. I thought that agreement was sacred. Melissa nodded and smiled when we signed the papers at the bank. Her hand looped through mine like we were truly a team. But money has a way of revealing who people really are. Looking back, the warning signs were everywhere. Melissa always pushed for expensive vacations, designer handbags, weekend getaways to recharge. When I said no, she pouted and accused me of being stingy. She once told her sister at Thanksgiving, "Ryan treats money like it's oxygen, like I should ask permission to breathe." Everyone laughed, including her parents. I forced a smile, but inside something cracked. Despite it all, I stayed patient. I thought maybe she'd grow out of it. That was my mistake. Because one morning, on what should have been just another quiet Tuesday, I logged into our joint account and saw the numbers bleeding red. $15,000. Gone. At first, I thought it was a banking error, a glitch. But the transaction was clear. She hadn't just taken it, she had wired it out deliberately. My hands went cold, my breakfast untouched on the table as the reality sank in. This wasn't an accident. This was betrayal. And when I finally confronted her, I had no idea just how explosive her answer would be. I stared at the online banking screen for so long my vision blurred. $15,000 wasn't just money. It was years of careful saving, cutting corners, saying no to impulse buys. It was my safety net, our future house fund. The promise that no matter what storm came, we'd stay afloat. And now it was gone with the click of a button. I printed the statement, hands shaking, and stuffed it into my work bag. I couldn't focus on logistics reports, couldn't manage shipments or meetings. My mind kept looping. Why? Where did it go? Did she gamble? Did she give it to someone? By the time I drove home that evening, I had rehearsed 100 ways to confront her. Calm and logical, furious and demanding, silent until she cracked. But when I walked into our apartment and saw her lounging on the couch in new silk pajamas, scrolling through her phone like nothing was wrong, every strategy vanished. "Melissa," I said, my voice tighter than I intended. She glanced up, eyebrows arched. What's with the tone? I tossed the printed statement onto the coffee table. The bold negative balance screamed at us both. You want to explain this? Her eyes flicked down. For a moment, just a flicker, I saw the guilt. Then it hardened into something else. Defiance. She pushed the papers back toward me with one manicured finger. It's my right, she snapped. I've put up with you and your miser routine for years. That money. Consider it compensation. Compensation. I nearly choked. Melissa, that's our savings. Our down payment. You stole it. I didn't steal anything, she shouted, suddenly on her feet. I earned it. You think cooking, cleaning, keeping this place together is free? You've had it easy because of me. You owe me for these years. My jaw tightened. You work part-time at a boutique and spend half your paycheck on shoes. Don't act like you've been breaking your back to keep us afloat. That money wasn't just mine, it was supposed to be ours. And you drained it behind my back. Her voice rose another octave, shrill and cutting. Because you never treat me like an equal. Every time I want something, you lecture me about budgets and responsibility. Well, guess what, Ryan? I took what was mine. Deal with it. I felt the heat climbing my neck, anger pounding like a drum in my chest. For a second, I almost exploded. I almost screamed, every insult burning on my tongue. But then I remembered the paper in my bag. Evidence. Cold. Undeniable. Without a word, I pulled it out and held it up between us. You want equality? Fine, let's be equal. Pay back every cent. Her face twisted. She lunged for the statement, nails catching my hand as she tried to rip it away. Don't you dare wave that in my face, she shrieked. I'll burn it before I let you humiliate me with it. Humiliate? That was the word she was afraid of. Not guilty, not sorry. Just the fear that someone else might see the truth. I yanked the paper back and stuffed it in my jacket pocket. We're not done. Not by a long shot? She glared, breathing hard, her hands trembling. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked cornered, and yet she still spat venom. If you think you can shame me in front of anyone, you'll regret it. I'll make sure they know exactly what kind of controlling husband you are. I didn't respond, not then. I just turned and walked to the bedroom, shutting the door on her ranting. But inside, something had crystallized. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about betrayal, about respect, about whether I was willing to let someone tear through years of sacrifice and then scream that it was their right. And in that moment, staring at the locked door while she hurled muffled insults through it, I knew the confrontation wasn't over. It had only just begun. 2 nights later, Melissa insisted we have dinner with her parents. She dressed like nothing had happened. Red lipstick, diamond earrings, her best black dress, while I sat across from her in silence, the folded statement heavy in my jacket pocket. We're going to act normal, she muttered as she applied perfume. Don't you dare embarrass me in front of my family. I almost laughed. Normal. As if $15,000 could vanish and we could just smile over pot roast. But I didn't argue. I just followed her out the door. Her parents, Richard and Diane, lived in a polished suburban home 30 minutes away. They greeted us warmly, though Richard eyed me like he always did, as though I'd never been worthy of his daughter. Melissa clung to my arm, laughing too loudly, complimenting the table setting, performing the part of the perfect girlfriend. Dinner began politely enough. Small talk about work, about Diane's garden, about the weather turning cold. But beneath the surface, I felt like I was sitting on a live wire. Melissa kept glancing at me, daring me to break the facade. Halfway through the meal, Diane put her hand over Melissa's. Sweetheart, you look tired. Is everything all right? Melissa smiled sweetly. Just stress. Ryan's been difficult lately, always nagging about money. My fork froze. Difficult. Nagging? That was her story. Richard frowned at me, Money problems, son. That was it. I pulled the folded statement from my jacket and placed it on the table like a verdict. Since we're sharing, maybe you should know your daughter drained our joint account of $15,000 without telling me. The room went still. Melissa's face drained of color, then flushed bright red. "Ryan," she hissed, "what the hell are you doing?" I didn't flinch. I pushed the paper toward her father. "Here's the proof." Every cent gone. And when I confronted her, she said it was her right, that I owed her for the years we've been together. Diane covered her mouth. Richard scanned the page, his jaw tightening. "Melissa, is this true?" Melissa's chair screeched back as she shot to her feet. "He's twisting everything. I worked just as hard as him. That money was mine too." "It was ours," I corrected coldly. "And if it was really yours, why hide it? Why scream at me when I asked about it? Why try to tear this out of my hands?" Melissa lunged across the table, fingers clawing for the statement. Plates rattled, one shattered against the floor. "Give it back!" she screamed. "You're humiliating me." "You humiliated yourself," I shouted back, standing. "You stole from me." "From us. And if you want to play this in front of your parents, fine. Let them see exactly who you are." Richard's voice thundered. "Enough!" He slammed his fist on the table. "Melissa, sit down." But she didn't. Tears streaked her mascara as she pointed at me, voice shrill and broken. "You don't get it. I gave you the best years of my life. I stayed while you worked late, while you obsessed over every dollar, while you acted like some damn accountant in our relationship. That money was my compensation for wasted time." The silence that followed was deafening. Even Diane, always her defender, stared at her in shock. Finally, Richard spoke, his tone like ice. "You embarrassed yourself, Melissa." "Not him. You don't take what isn't yours. You don't scream about rights when you've betrayed trust." Melissa collapsed into her chair, sobbing. "You're all against me. Every single one of you." I gathered the shards of the shattered plate and set them aside. My hands were steady now. My voice was calm. "This isn't about sides. It's about respect. And Melissa, respect is something you don't get to demand after you've stolen it away." When we finally left, the tension was suffocating. Diane tried to hug her daughter at the door, but Melissa pulled away, storming ahead into the night. Richard caught my arm as I followed. "She won't forgive you for this," he warned quietly. I met his eyes. "She doesn't need to. I just need the truth to stop hiding in shadows." He gave the faintest nod, almost respect, before turning back inside. And as I walked to the car, watching Melissa slam the passenger door hard enough to rattle the frame, I knew the explosion at dinner wasn't the end. It was the spark that would burn everything else down. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing nonstop. 27 unread texts, a dozen missed calls, 3 voicemails. All from different people, but all about Melissa. Her narrative had already spread like wildfire. The first text was from her cousin, Amanda. "Really, Ryan? You humiliate her in front of her parents. Over money, that's abusive." The second was from her college friend. "She told us you've been financially controlling for years." That account was her escape fund. You should be ashamed, I almost laughed. Escape fund. She had access to every dollar I did. There was no prison, only her greed. But Melissa wasn't done. That afternoon, Diane called me in tears. "Ryan, she's saying you screamed at her, that you threw plates, that you threatened her. People are calling me asking what happened." I cut her off. "Diane, you were there. You saw what happened. Who broke the plate? Who lunged across the table?" She went quiet. "I know, honey. But she's spinning it online, too. Facebook posts, Instagram stories. She's making you sound like a monster." I felt my chest tighten. Melissa wasn't just trying to win her parents over, she was trying to poison the entire family tree. By the end of the week, the fallout had reached work. My coworker, Jared, pulled me aside in the break room. "Hey, man, Melissa sent me this." He slid his phone across the table. On screen was a message. "If Ryan seems off at work, it's because of his anger issues." I'm scared of him. Just a heads up, I clenched my jaw. Jared, you know me. Do I look like someone who screams in people's faces for fun? He gave a sheepish smile. Didn't believe her for a second. Just thought you should know what she's trying. I thanked him, but the knot in my stomach grew. She was building a campaign. Lies, half-truths, manipulations. And I was the target. Friday night, her father called. His voice was stern but not cold. "Melissa told me you're kicking her out." "That true?" "Yes," I said flatly. "She stole from me." "We can't share a roof anymore. She's your wife." "She's a thief," I snapped back. "And if she's telling you otherwise, maybe you should ask her where the money went." Silence, then a sigh. "I'll talk to her." Melissa herself tried next. She showed up at our apartment, mascara smudged, voice dripping with false remorse. "Baby, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to get this bad. It was just desperation. I felt unseen. I felt owed. I stood in the doorway, blocking her entry." $15,000 isn't desperation. It's robbery tears welled in her eyes. "Please, Ryan. We can fix this. Don't throw away everything." I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots, her posts, her messages to my coworkers, her cousin's texts parroting her lies. "You already threw it away. You didn't just take money. You tried to take my name with it." Her mask cracked. The tears dried instantly, her face twisting with rage. "You'll regret this." Nobody humiliates me and gets away with it. She stormed down the hall, heels echoing like gunshots. That weekend, the flying monkeys hit harder. Aunts, cousins, distant relatives, all messaging me, demanding explanations. Some were polite, others venomous. My inbox was a battlefield. But the best part, screenshots started surfacing from people who didn't believe her. Melissa had posted a long rant in her private Facebook group. "Men like Ryan think money buys them control. I took what I deserved. 3 years of being treated like a dependent. Hell no, I cashed out my labor. He should thank me for not taking more." Her words, her arrogance, proof she saw marriage not as partnership but as a paycheck. I saved every screenshot. Sunday, Diane showed up at my door, alone. She looked exhausted. "Ryan, I don't know what's happening anymore. Half the family's furious at you, half at her. Richard refuses to take sides. I just want the truth." I handed her the folder I'd prepared. Bank statements, screenshots, her daughter's own words. "Here." Read. "Then tell me who's lying." She flipped through in silence, color draining from her face. By the last page, her hands were shaking. "My God, she really— Oh, Ryan." I nodded grimly. "This is what I've been dealing with. And it's only getting worse." For the first time, I saw pity, not for Melissa, but for me. Diane whispered, "I'll talk to Richard." You don't deserve this, but Melissa wasn't finished yet. Because by Monday morning, she wasn't just fighting me in private. She was dragging the war into public courtrooms and legal threats. And that's when the real chaos began. Monday morning, just as I was pouring coffee, there was a knock at my door. Not Melissa, not Diane. A man in a gray suit handed me an envelope. "You've been served." I opened it with shaking hands. Melissa had filed for spousal support, her claim, that I had financially controlled her, cut her off from her rightful assets, and humiliated her in front of family. I laughed bitterly. $15,000 stolen wasn't enough. She wanted more. That same day, she doubled down online. Her Facebook page turned into a battleground. A long post accompanied by a carefully chosen photo of her, looking tearful, read, After years of being silenced, I'm finally standing up for myself. Financial abuse is real. Marriage doesn't mean ownership. I took what I deserved, and now I'm fighting in court for justice. The comments rolled in, half of them from her friends. Stay strong, queen, and no woman should be controlled by a man's wallet. The other half, brutal. Screenshots of her private rant about cashing out my labor started circulating. People posted memes. Melissa's cash grab, coming to theaters near you. She deleted and reposted, deleted and reposted. Each time her story shifted. Each time more cracks showed. In the middle of the storm, I met with a lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Carla Jenkins who didn't waste words. After reviewing the bank statements and Melissa's public posts, she leaned back and smirked. She's hung herself, Carla said. This isn't financial abuse. This is theft. And thanks to her running her mouth online, we have her confession in writing. We'll counter-sue. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of control. The hearing came fast. Melissa arrived in a white dress, clutching tissues like she was auditioning for a tragedy. Her lawyer painted me as a cold, calculating man who treated his wife like an employee. Melissa dabbed her eyes at all the right moments. Then Carla stood, calm, precise. She laid the bank statements on the judge's bench. Then she displayed Melissa's own words from her Facebook rant. I cashed out my labor. That money was my compensation. The judge's face tightened. Mrs. Carter, did you write this? Melissa stammered. That was taken out of context. Context? Carla arched a brow. You admitted publicly you took money because you felt owed. That's not survival. That's embezzlement, Melissa's lawyer objected, but the damage was done. The judge scheduled a second hearing, not for spousal support, but to determine whether Melissa owed restitution. If court was bad, the aftermath was worse, for her. Because the story didn't stay in the courtroom. One of Melissa's friends live-tweeted vague updates during the hearing. Soon, screenshots of her contradictions spread across local social media groups. Someone even made a TikTok compiling her quotes, her compensation rant, her Instagram posts, her crocodile tears. The video hit 200,000 views in a week. Melissa wasn't being seen as a victim anymore. She was a spectacle. At home, I tried to keep my head down, but Melissa wasn't finished. One night, she showed up at my apartment building screaming in the parking lot. You ruined me. You stole my future. She hurled her purse against the wall, startling neighbors who peered through blinds. Security escorted her off the property. I filed a restraining order the next morning. 2 days later, her parents called again. This time, Richard sounded weary. Ryan, we're sorry. We didn't believe you at first. But after court, after everything she's posted, it's clear. She's lost Diane, voice trembling, added, she's still our daughter, but she's not the same girl we raised. I hung up with a heavy heart, because I wasn't just losing a wife. Melissa was burning every bridge she had. The public meltdown crescendoed when Melissa tried to crash a family dinner at Diane and Richard's house. She barged in, screaming that I had brainwashed them, that they were choosing me over their own blood. When Richard told her to leave, she threw a wine glass at the wall and shrieked, You'll all regret this when I'm gone. Diane burst into tears. Richard called the police. They escorted her out in handcuffs for disturbing the peace. By then, there was no marriage left, no love, no trust, only wreckage. And yet, as I watched her dragged away screaming into the night, I realized something. This wasn't just about the $15,000 anymore. It was about a woman who believed entitlement was love, about a family ripped apart by lies, and about me finally taking back my voice no matter how loud she tried to scream over it. The restraining order was granted 2 weeks later. Melissa wasn't allowed within 200 feet of me, my job, or my family's home. For a brief moment, I thought the chaos might finally settle. I was wrong. The final desperate move. On a rainy Thursday night, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Meet me at the cafe on 7th. No lawyers, just us. For closure against my better judgment, I went. Maybe some part of me wanted to see if there was anything left. Any shred of the woman I once thought I'd spend my life with? Melissa was already there, makeup streaked, eyes swollen from crying. In front of her was a folder. "I can't fight anymore," she whispered. "You win. I'll sign whatever you want. But I need one thing. Don't make me pay back the full amount." "Just half?" I stared at her. "Half? After everything? After the screaming, the lies, the court hearings, the stunts?" Her lips trembled. "I didn't know it would get this far. Then she slipped. She reached for the folder too quickly and a stack of papers slid out. Bank statements, credit card charges. Melissa hadn't stopped. She'd opened a secret line of credit in my name and racked up another $6,000 in debt since the restraining order. It was the final straw. I gathered the papers, stood, and said coldly, "Closure." "You want closure. Here it is. You just buried yourself?" I walked out without looking back. The court verdict. A month later, the final hearing arrived. My lawyer, Carla, laid out everything. The missing $15,000, her social media confessions, the police reports, the fraudulent credit card debt. Melissa didn't cry this time. She sat stone-faced, jaw tight, as the judge delivered the verdict. She owed restitution, every cent. The fraudulent credit card account, closed with full responsibility shifted to her. Spousal support, denied permanently. Court costs, hers to pay. The gavel came down, case closed. Melissa's hands shook. "You've destroyed me," she hissed. "No," I replied softly. "You did that yourself." The family fallout word spread fast. Her parents, already exhausted, finally cut ties. Richard called me a week later. "She's staying with a friend now. Diane and I, we can't do this anymore. She burned every bridge. We're sorry, Ryan, for everything I didn't know what to say." So I just thanked him and wished them peace. Mutual friends. Most had dropped her after the court spectacle. The few who clung on eventually stopped when Melissa tried the same manipulative games on them. She was isolated. The shattered image one night, a coworker sent me a TikTok. Melissa again. Except this time she wasn't ranting, she was begging. "Please, if anyone can help. I need a place to stay, I need work. I just need a fresh start." The comments, unforgiving. "Didn't you steal from your husband? Girl, this is the labor cash-out chick. Actions have consequences." She deleted the video within hours, but by then, it was everywhere. My new beginning 6 months later, my life looked nothing like the wreckage she left behind. I'd moved into a new apartment across town, closer to work. I'd started running again, something I gave up years ago. My bank account wasn't just recovered, it was healthier than before. And for the first time in years, my nights were quiet. No screaming, no paranoia, just peace. I wasn't dating yet, I wasn't rushing into anything, but I had something far more valuable. Clarity. The moral looking back, it wasn't about the $15,000, not really. It was about respect, honesty, trust, all the things Melissa thought she could replace with entitlement. She screamed, "It's my right, you owe me." But here's the truth. Love isn't a transaction. It isn't an invoice. And it sure as hell isn't a debt. If someone sees your partnership as a paycheck, you don't have a marriage. You have a ticking time bomb. Melissa wanted payment. What she got was the bill. And me. I walked away with the only wealth that mattered, my self-respect.